Three people.
Your event has started. That means that, guys, it's time for us to put away the little bedroom banter that Ron likes to use, and it's time for us to welcome everyone to the summer 2015 Disc Jockey News Virtual Expo. Woohoo! We are here. We are live, and we are... Did anybody bring the script of stuff we're going to talk about tonight?
Yes, I think.
Oh, well, let's start off by introducing ourselves and kind of going through a little bit. For those of you out there watching, thank you for jumping on. If you are seeing this and you want to get to the chat area in the player on djnvirtualexpo.com, you go to and kind of hover over the lower right corner. You'll see the YouTube icon. Click on that. That'll open a window to YouTube, and then you will see on the right side a chat area. And you can go there and talk to us and ask questions. And I see that there's people there that are doing just that. This is so incredible.
Guys haven't even said anything yet. That's amazing.
They're checking in from Nashville, Tennessee, and no one's here yet. DJ Duke there is saying no one's here yet. No, we're here. We're here, and we're live. Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Dan Carpenter. I am the owner of DC Entertainment based in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. So when you get ready to watch the Little League World Series here in about a month, that's in my hometown. So for me, I focus on weddings and school dances, two areas that I really just kind of want to hone in on. And it's great to be a part of this evening.
Yeah, great to have you. I'm glad it worked out. For those, Dan, you also, as a we'll call it your side job, since it's not, the DJ, we like to think it's the main job, is a school teacher. And most of the time when we start talking to him, it's a school night, and his wife says he has to get to bed on time. So we get to stay out late tonight.
I know, I can't believe it.
This is awesome.
I'll actually watch the whole thing live.
You're supposed to be doing the show live, not...
No, later.
Oh, the second, part. The 9 o'clock show. Yes, yeah, that's
exactly,
right. That starts at 10 your time. Let's keep going to the right. MJ, you're next.
Hello, my name is Michael Joseph. I am an MC and a DJ, and I have two shows on Disc Jockey News, The Rewind Report, which is a plain and simple news show, and My DJ Obsession, which we are still trying to develop, to figure out what it is, but it's kind of like an open format talking about the world of DJing. And I primarily do clubs and parties and bars and stuff like that, and I'm trying to tailor my career as I get older into more of the educational side of things. I have a degree in education, and I've never used it aside from teaching DJing. So just trying to use that all with this and to help other people keep a passion in what they do, because it's kind of tough sometimes in this business to lose your passion in this business. And I want to encourage people to keep that freshness going.
For sure. I guess I learned something tonight already, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't know that MJ had a teaching certificate. Wow.
I'm legitimate, but I was just had finished up my degree and went and not have the patience for a room full of children. I should have learned that earlier, but it's life. But it's working out now. I get what I get to teach with the DJ classes online and stuff that I do. It's perfect. It helps me with everything to help communicate the things that like a new DJ needs to learn.
Yeah. So. Neat. Very good. Very good. Let's continue. Ron.
Hi, I'm Ron Ruth of Ron Ruth Wedding Entertainment. And you watch the Big League, Little League World Series coming up in the fall. That'll be here in the Kansas City area with the Kansas City Royals. Go Royals!
So they lose again.
They're losing tonight, as a matter of fact. So been in business for about 25 years. I also, like MJ, am very passionate about what I do and try to encourage other DJs to remain as passionate and fresh and creative as they possibly can.
I didn't know we were doing the baseball thing. That hometown I grew up in is the home of the Pony League World Series. So if that means anything to anybody, not me. And I lived there. I dated the Pony League princess once. It doesn't matter.
The Pony League princess.
Yes.
I think we're about to have a whole other show.
A Pony League princess. Now. I like the theater of the mind, so you need to describe, first off, what a typical Pony League princess would look like.
I gotta know that. Yeah.
And what do they use for judging of that young person?
She energy and excitement towards the game of baseball for the Pony League age of the sport. It's televised. If you want to go when it comes on, they televise it on ESPN now, so you can see
uh,
whoever is now.
that's
They do it every
definitely
year.
that's definitely must-see TV.
And I bet the young lady who wins puts on an incredible performance, which is our bridge to tonight's topic of performance.
Woo!
Wow, I see how you did that.
Yeah, try to bring that one around before we
Amazing.
end up getting
Wow.
shut down with the FCC. We're offending people. I'm offended by you. Anyway, hey, we're going to talk about performance tonight, and what I wanted to do with our crew this evening is kind of talk a little bit about some of the ways in which we get ready for our performances, things we have done, things that have brought us to the point of where we are today. So we've kind of shared a few questions or some direction in which we're going to kind of go with that tonight, and we've already started to talk about some of the events that we do today. But what I want to do, guys, and we'll continue to go from a left to right order, which is Dan, MJ, and Ron, because that's the way everyone's seeing you guys on the screen, is let's talk about some of the different types of events we have done over the years to give people a perspective of the types of shows that we have in our history. So Dan, start us off. What kind of things have you done over the years? Even if it's been a one that was just a learning experience and you would never do it again, but just kind of give us a full view of what you've done.
I feel like I've done just about a little bit of everything. I started out in radio. That was my kind of introduction to DJing. From there, went into doing birthday parties, doing anniversary type parties, things of that nature. I did the club scene for probably about 10 years. And then just kind of when I got into the teaching, it was time for me, at least, to put that to the side. Over the time now, I've kind of developed and as I mentioned earlier, just now I focus on school dances and weddings as my two primary type things. But yeah, over the 15 years that I've been doing this, it's just been, at least in the beginning, it was whatever somebody's willing to send my way is what I was willing to do.
Right. Okay, let's hold it there. There's some good stuff there, and we'll get back to that. MJ, what's your variety and scope of what types of things you've done?
Over the years, it's really ranged a lot. From there was a time in the late 90s when EDM was really big. I was actually a vocal performer to where that part of my show was DJing, part of it. So I would be doing shows of, singing and scratching and doing stuff like live, like it was my instrument. Do a lot of clubs. I've done weddings, the basic, the classic car shows, everything. But primarily, I don't do weddings, maybe one or two a year. I'm not a real big fan of doing them. Primarily do clubs and parties and stuff like that.
Okay, and Ron?
Wow. So 25 years ago, when I first started my business, I started out with an idea that I saw in St. Louis. It was called Rock and Bowl. So when I moved to Kansas City and I first started my business, I brought that idea here, and within the first summer, we were doing somewhere in the area of about 13, 14 Rock and Bowls a week, just spread out all across the city. So that was my introduction into the DJ world. But from there, I've done private parties. I did high schools. I've done some small bars, nothing like nightclub work, just primarily bar work. Bar and bat mitzvahs. Did a quinceanera. And then, of course, weddings. And weddings are my primary focus now. Although, and I left out of my list, corporate events. We still do some holiday corporate events, but most of my focus is on weddings.
Okay, so we've got kind of a wide variety. We've had all of us have had experiences in clubs. Some of us are doing more weddings today. Some of us are doing more corporate events or outside of wedding type events or in a club situation. What I want to talk about now is when we prepared for the events. Now I don't want to be talking about the way we prepare, but when we were first starting out, what are some of the things that you would do to prepare? And let's kind of, since we've all done kind of clubs or bars, how did we early in our stages, how would we prepare for those events? And this might get ugly because of how we did it. And Dan, I'm going to put you on the spot again. How did you prepare when you were first starting out for the DJ world or the DJ performances?
Well, as far as the club and bar scene, when I first started, I worked in a place called Shoeless Joe's in Johnson City, Tennessee. And I started as a happy hour DJ. They were trying to have this thing where basically music would play during dinner. Satellite was around, but for whatever reason, they wanted to have a real person in there, and so that was fine. Within about a month, the two guys that did the club stuff later, they quit. So I was thrown onto a dual deck CD player playing for their club scene. And for preparing, I did not know what to do. So it was a matter of just going in there, grabbing music that was provided, and just start playing. Little by little, started practicing, how to beat mix and get things ready, and just go from there. But a lot of my club stuff, especially in the beginning, it was just a matter of, let's do it. Whatever sounds good, let's feed off of what people are providing for that night and just go from there.
Sure, sure. You mentioned beat mixing now. Is that basically it, or were you doing any kind of mixes beyond where you do some studio type work with your shows?
No, definitely not at that point. At that point I was so novice to that aspect of it that creating anything was not even, I guess I knew of it, but it was nothing that I knew anybody my level, I guess you could say, would do. At that point it was, early 2000s, and my experience was very novice. So I only knew of the big names, the national names, if you will, doing that. So no, I wasn't doing anything studio wise.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got you. MJ, now you've done a lot more things, of course, when it comes to the clubs and the music scene, and I know you have done a lot of remixes because I've seen some of the things on iTunes that you've done in the past. In your early days, now when you were first getting into it, in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, what kind of things did you do to prepare for going into these clubs and performing?
The first 2 or 3, 5, 4 years was in the late 80s. So it was a whole different thing back then. It was vinyl, and depending on if you needed to bring a cassette tape in to play a song that you had to have for that night. But as it developed into the CD burning days, I think that's when things kind of got interesting on the technical side, and where I think I started to kind of excel because of my love for the technical side of things. And it kind of jumped. I can just say that's where my club scenes jumped to where, like, I could create the music. I would write, like I said, when I did the festivals and the performing, I was writing my own original music and then taking remixes and bringing stuff live and putting it all together, and the beat matching and the scratching, and that all kind of developed on through into the 90s to where it's kind of funny where I just looked at my paycheck and said, I make a lot more money as a straight DJ than a vocal artist, so I'm just DJing now. And stepped away into the big clubs, with thousands of people. And, it was that whole EDM, the whole Sandstorm era and all that, and just kind of went nuts with that. And just that's kind of where it's been. The preparation for it early days was burning CDs, making sure you had the newest music or the mix that you had to have. And you tried to get that mix out before everybody did. And those were the days where the downloads were just starting, so a DJ could still break a song if they had a special new kind of mix. Like nowadays, everybody has it the same day. The DJ's not going to have it and break a song and go, I broke the song and it's a new hit. Yeah. Everybody has it at the same time. So that was still that era then where you were still kind of, I remember a friend of mine who, really, really famous mix artist, did a remix of it was a Madonna song, I can't think of it, where he was paid by the company to do the remix, and he had to mail the CD to the company so that they could release it. Gave it to me the same day he mailed it to them, overnighted it to them, and I got to play a Madonna remix that was then became a hit on the charts before anybody else did. But when the fact of how quick those things went in the internet, it really doesn't even matter, Yeah. It's like big deal. I played the song first. Who cares? Yeah. So the change of how that's went from then, what you buy, if anybody in the old school remembers what white labels are, covering up the track you had, trying to hide it. That's just not. That's where it came from, and where it's at now. It's totally different. So,
yeah. Yeah.
Long story. Did I even answer your question?
Well, that's okay. That long convoluted trail leads us right up to Rod.
I used to shower and comb my hair. That was pretty much it. I mean, prep for a bar. I mean, for me, I thought in those days. I mean, this would have been in the early '90s. I mean, just show up and play music. I mean, That's pretty much. You said it was going to get ugly. It's ugly because that's pretty much all I did.
How about for the weddings, Ron? I'll have you kind of go in that direction.
Okay. For the weddings, when I first started doing weddings, I mean, it was very limited. I would usually, believe it or not, I would have most of my sales were done over the phone. Of course, I was competing on price, so that was fairly easy. I would meet with my clients maybe a week in advance of their wedding, and this is extremely embarrassing. I always met them at McDonald's, and you know why? Because there's a McDonald's on every corner. It was easy to find a McDonald's. Plus, I would always buy them a soda, so I always felt like I was doing a big thing. Um, Planning usually took maybe about 45 minutes because in those days, for me, every wedding reception was exactly the same. It was laid out exactly the same in the exact same order. It was just a matter of plugging in the different music choices. And as far as actually preparing for the wedding itself, I mean that was pretty much it. I mean that's you showed up, you played the music, you went through the motions, and I'm embarrassed to say that's the way it was.
And in the part that, when as you're describing it, it's very similar to my experience with preparing for weddings early in my career, except you mentioned you met with your couples.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah,
That was crazy.
yeah. I don't remember who. I probably went to a conference somewhere and they said you really should meet with your couples or something. I don't know, or maybe I had a couple say we'd like to meet with you to do this, and then I thought, well, maybe that's a good idea, so perhaps I should do that more often. Um, but yeah, I mean, those meetings were usually, and it wasn't, if somebody had an idea, it was, to me, any new idea was like, oh no, that won't work. Let's just stay with the tried and true method here because trust me, I'm the professional. Every wedding is exactly like this, and this is the way it goes. And in those days, we also tried to cram everything we could possibly cram into a wedding, from the money dances to the anniversary dances to, of course, I wasn't doing love stories in those days, but and then you even included, I had been to a conference where they said, brides really love it when DJs are interactive. So I would talk to the couples about all the little fun interactive dances I could do, and I would even stop a full dance floor so I could get those interactive dances in, because every bride loved those
They
interactive
do.
dances.
They
Yeah,
they do. They
they
definitely
do.
do.
They do. They do.
Yeah, thinking back to that my early weddings, we had a one-page contract, and it had
Oh yeah.
their information at the top, and all of my planning form was the little 3 inches at the bottom, which it had a little line saying "cut here to in return with your check," and that had their first dance song and check for the dollar dance, check for the garter, check for the bouquet, and maybe I don't even know if I was doing father, daughter, and mother, son options at that time. Was that simple because, well, basically, here we are, a couple of college, coming out of high school, early college kids, and all of a sudden doing weddings, and we were so unprepared.
Well, you didn't even ask about, what song do you want played while the cake is being cut, or what song the only songs that you asked about were the parent dances and the first dance. Everything else, the garter removal was always what? The stripper.
Oh, of
Had to be
course.
the stripper, That's, to this day, that's still a classic.
Yeah.
And as far as the introduction music was concerned, it was just whatever I was in the mood for at that particular time. What I thought would, there was no real thought to the whole
Yeah.
process. So
No, there really wasn't. It was, as you say, it was really
if
all
you're a
based
young
around.
DJ, do not do it this way.
Yeah, exactly. This is what we did. We did
This
wrong.
is the bad thing.
This was the bad side
Yeah.
of it. And yet, and as I think back to it now, is getting back to the club side of it. In my early days, I think I spent more time preparing for my. I had a 10-year run as a DJ at the bar. I think I spent way more time preparing for that show than I did many of the weddings in the early days, back in the early '90s, just because the club is where people would get drunk and swear at me half the night if I did something wrong. I was
Well,
afraid.
And every club owner I ever met had something. They were crazy. I mean, am I right, MJ? I mean, almost every club. And yeah, I mean, they're just crazy people.
I try to tell young DJs who are trying to break into the club scene that a lot of them want to show people what cool music is. I know what's cool. If they need me in that club, I can make that club jump off. And they don't realize that the majority of the time, it's not what's cool, it's not what the people want, it's what the manager or the owner wants played in there. And I literally have had There was a time in the early 2000s, and I don't know if you remember, Safri Duo had the song Bongo Played Out or Bongo Nation or something. It was right around the same time as Sandstorm. It was ridiculously popular. Floor was going bananas. The manager come up behind me, put his hand on my shoulder, and goes, "I don't want that song ever played in here. It's too popular. It's too popular." So I couldn't play it in there, and people were constantly asking for it. So managers, I don't understand them a lot. I know for a fact that they do see it from a money side, because there's a place now that where the place will go crazy bananas all night long, people partying, and I'll look at the manager and go, "Hey, it was a good night, wasn't?" And he goes, "I don't know, I haven't seen the numbers yet."
Mm-hmm.
So to him, a room packed full of people doesn't mean anything unless they've spent money. So each is its own little animal, and and some animals need shot.
Yeah, very much on it. And I guess that's a great point, Michael, that you make, is that the ones that are looking at the numbers and really looking at the bottom line, I almost prefer that more, because then my job is not only it's to work the crowd and keep them entertained and keep them involved, but then it's also to get them so they go and buy drinks, and you can do that with your music programming.
I had a friend who worked at an all hip hop place. I mean, like really urban hip hop. And twice a night, he would get a text from the manager that said, "Play 2 techno songs." And he would have to skip from the full hip hop format and drop 2 techno songs because the manager wanted people to leave the floor and go buy a drink.
Yep.
And they would be so mad at him, throw stuff at him, everything. And it's like, it's my job, man. I have to do what the manager wants.
Yeah. Yeah, my eclectic manager that I worked for a number of years, he was really big into the Bodines. And I had never purchased a Bodines track. I don't even know if any Bodines tracks were on any of the discs I was getting at the time from any of the music services. But I had to go out and buy that. And you would end up playing 3 or 4 of those every night because those were his songs. Yeah. It was.
Yeah, there's a big club in the city that the manager always makes the DJs play. I can't remember the name of the song, but it was by Kevin Little, and it was out in the early 2000s. You'd have to look it up.
Turn Me On, I think.
Yeah, he requires that almost every night still, and this is a major club.
Years later. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. So we talked about our prep in the early days and some of the things we did, and MJ, you started to kind of segue into our prep for today. And I want to, MJ, when we get to you, I want you to focus more on how you're preparing to make your show different in the club scene in Pittsburgh than some of the other DJs. And I'll let you kind of think on that one a little bit when we get to you. But Dan, now today I want you to, for weddings, what kind of things are you doing to prepare for the weddings? If we take that, before the wedding day, wedding Saturday, working all the things prior to that, what are you doing?
Well, it's kind of sad. Sometimes I talk about my DJ side being the first life, but the teaching side, I think, is what really has helped me do the weddings and kind of the style that I do. It's creating that lesson plan, for lack of better terms, from the very beginning. So one of the things I'd like to do is, obviously, once I have a client lined up and everything, I send out my planning form, which I'm sure most of us do, and have them start working on it. Touch base with them over the next couple months to kind of just see how they're doing. But then I like to sit down about 2 months prior to the wedding and just go over in detail, get to know maybe sides that we didn't cover at the first meeting, stuff that, we haven't talked about over the next couple months. And I'll just jot notes all over my page, everything that I can, even if it's a little joke that they made, something that I can, kind of keep and tuck away, in my head. And then over the next 2 months, I'll take a little bit of time here and there and just start to kind of put things together. I start out with the itinerary, what's the flow that we talked about that night? What are we going to put where? So that I kind of have that I'm going to do, the steps that I want to have for each of the parts of the night. And then I start filling in the pieces that I need. And then that night I have my lesson plan. It's my itinerary that I follow and use to go through. Leading up to it, then the week, probably about the week before the event, I once again send that itinerary out to the bride and the groom and just say, hey, I know we talked about this a couple months ago. Just want to make sure nothing's changed from what we talked about. This is what we said. Everybody's on the same page here. And once I get that as yep, we like it. were spot on, or no, we forgot we were going to do this. Oh, okay, and fix that up. Then I mail that out to the vendors, and I start, make communications with them, or further communications with them with that. And then I go into extra practice mode and just, am I saying this name right? Am I, how can I try and make sure I'm not saying this the same way I've done for the last 5 or 6 weddings before it, and try and make it that unique spin on it, so that by the time Saturday comes, it's my lesson, and I go in and I teach it. I teach what I'm doing that night. And sometimes, I hate to say sometimes, because I've prepared that way, I feel like I become too rehearsed. I kind of fall into certain, catches that I'm trying to break myself of. But in the same respect, because I've practiced it, I notice I don't have as many of those crutches as I used to. I remember, especially just a couple of years ago, before I really kind of knew what I didn't know, I would do the same spiel. I would do almost like go to a comedian and see them at a different show. They'll do the exact same thing, but to make it sound fresh. And I found myself, getting into that. So now by doing the practicing, I've kind of taken some of that away, because I'm a little bit more ready.
Sure.
Than I used to be.
Sure. I want to I want to get back to you, Dan, here in a second, but the question I want to follow up with, and Ron will get this on you to also with the weddings. When you do the amount of practice and prep that we do today, do you find your shows getting more rigid and in basically structured and almost too rigid? And Dan, I'll come back to you about that. Ron, your prep for a wedding today compared to what we had talked about earlier.
Well, it's somewhat similar to Dan's. My prep starts about 3 months in advance of a couple's wedding, and my first meeting with them is a what I call a getting acquainted meeting, and it's my opportunity just to sit and interview the couple for about an hour and a half, and get to learn as much as I possibly can about them, not only about their relationship, but how they came to be, who introduced them. Every detail, without taking up too much time, every detail that I can possibly come up with of how they came to be as a couple, and through their engagement, what they share in common, what they enjoy doing most together. And of course, part of the reason I do this interview also is because of the type of love story I do. I'm recording them. I'm putting them on hard drives. So I use pieces of that recording for their love story. The second time I meet with them is usually about 2 months out from their event. And that's when we sit down and we actually put a timeline to everything that it is that they want to do. And also, because of the information I got in the first meeting, I'm able to offer them any number of ideas that I think are going to be more specific to the two of them, rather than just shotgunning them a whole bunch of different ideas. Third time we get together is to actually go to the venue. And this is about a month out from their event. We go to the venue, we do a walkthrough, and I try to wrap up as many loose ends as I possibly can. My goal is to be out of their hair no later than 30 days prior to their event. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to have communication with them anymore, but it does mean that unless they request another meeting, we're done. So the bride and the groom can enjoy that last 30 minutes knowing it's all taken care of, and so can I.
30 days, yeah.
Yeah. The next time we get together, of course, is going to be at the rehearsal. I go to each and every rehearsal. I know there was a survey up not long ago on one of the DJ sites, forums. I go to every for any number of reasons, but the primary reason I go is that it allows me an opportunity to kind of go over the itinerary with the wedding party, so that they understand what their role is, and they understand when they need to be, where they need to be, when and where they need to be, when they need to be there. As far as rehearsal is concerned, I'm much like Dan. I rehearse a lot. I'm especially with love stories, and I do personalized wedding party introductions. So I invest quite a bit of time in rehearsal, and not only rehearsal, but rewriting and that sort of thing. Saying about keeping it fresh, probably about the only thing that's pat on me as far as something that I do at every wedding is my welcoming. But I work very hard to keep that fresh, and I've been taking improv, and improv has really helped me with freshening a lot of parts of my presentation that may have been a little bit too structured in the past, because I'm more comfortable going off script than I used to be. So, all in all, I mean, for me, a 4 hour wedding, as it sounds like it is probably for Dan as well, a 4 hour wedding for me can be anywhere from a 45 to 60 hour event. It just depends on the couple and how much we're doing. And it's a considerable change
Mm-hmm.
from 25 years ago of 45-minute meetings at McDonald's to do something like that.
And
And because it's so well structured, and I think Dan would agree, and cut me off, John, if I go too long. I think for me, what I really like about detail, because I become a very detailed individual, is the more detailed you are, the less chance something is going to happen at the event. I mean, I share everything with all of the other members of the wedding team in advance so that they know what the timeline is. We have opportunities to fix things before if there's something that needs to be corrected or adjusted, we have ample time to do it before the event. I'm just like a bride. I absolutely hate surprises, and I would much rather just go into the event knowing that it's ready to go and go with it.
We've got a question here, and I think we want to tackle this one before we get back to the other one. And then MJ, I'm gonna do this question, and MJ, we're gonna talk about the club thing a bit. The question came up from Mixmaster Entertainment. Do you go to because I know, Ron, you go to a lot of rehearsals. Do you go to the rehearsals even if you're not doing anything with the ceremony? Do you go to that just to meet the people and get to know them?
Yeah, I go. No, I go to every wedding rehearsal, regardless of whether I'm part of the ceremony or not, and for a couple reasons. I said one of the reasons is that, of course, gives you an opportunity to meet the parents, gives you an opportunity to meet the wedding party. You can talk about not only the timeline for the next day, but you can talk about where it is that they're going to go to at the venue when they arrive. You can talk about what their staging is when they're introduced. Where do they go once they're introduced into the room? If I'm at the rehearsal and it's at the venue, I'll even walk them. But it also establishes not only with the bride and groom, but it establishes a confidence with the parents and with the wedding party that somebody's got this under control.
Right.
That you got to. And they don't have to worry about it. And so consequently, one of the advantages of that is back in the day when I was only doing 45-minute planning sessions, I was just the DJ, and people treated me like just the DJ. Now I'm kind of the guy in charge, although, not totally in charge, but you gain a certain amount of respect from taking that extra step. People understand what your role is. I talked about explaining the role of the wedding party. By showing up at the wedding rehearsal and doing all of these things, you've established your role as well.
Oh, certainly you have. Yeah, and I think when you're doing things like that, you're bringing a different value to your clients.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I would say, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I was going to ask you if you've done with the rehearsal. So go ahead, Dan.
Well, I've not gone to the rehearsal when I've not been a part of it, and so when I'm looking at this and I'm trying to think about, is that something that I could implement for myself? I have a hard time taking it that next step. For those that don't read the article, I'm the part-time guy and who maybe missed out with the math teaching. I value my time that I'm not at school or I'm not at an event quite a bit, and so for me to take that time, I think is an important step. But I also have a hard time is taking it and driving to the venue or no, I shouldn't say the venue, but to the ceremony site when I'm not partaking any of that aspect. I think for those that maybe are kind of in that same situation, the communication that Ron is talking about, that's really, I think, one of the things that's important out of that. And that's what I would take for myself is if you're not going to go to the ceremony because you're not a part of it, still reach out, still make those connections and still, touch base. Now, again, I look at it strictly as I would say 90% of my weddings, they're not at the same location as the venue. Yeah. They're at a church or they're someplace else. If they're in the same venue, that's a different story. I almost feel like there is a great opening, a great opportunity for you to again touch base right before the night of. But when you're 20 miles away from the venue site because that's where the church is, I do see it. I do see the other side to that.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I want to establish, John, and I always hate We talk. You can't do this without talking value and worth, because everybody, and some people. I understand what Dan's saying. If I had family, I might consider it differently. I don't. Other than my wife, I don't have a family, but I charge for this. This is a part of my service. My clients are paying me for this part of my service. This is not something I'm giving away. It's part of the value of what they're paying for with my services. So, I think that for them. And actually, that's my niche client, is a client that wants that kind of detail addressed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's for everyone. I mean, we're seeing a lot of people mentioning that they're part-time in this profession, and I myself, I guess you'd consider me part-time, because I spend so much time with the Disc Jockey News, and those hours on a Friday night are very valuable when the children are home and you want to do something with the kids, and that's changes the perspective completely with that.
Mm-hmm.
That it does. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit. I want to jump into, we've been talking weddings. I want to get the other side a little bit. MJ, I mentioned earlier that we want to talk about how you prepare now, because I know that you do quite a few shows in the Pittsburgh area in the club scene, and it's not like it was years ago where we could probably turn on the top 40 station and listen for an hour and know what you're going to play that night. What kind of things, tools or resources or what have you, to prepare for making your show different than the guy down the street?
It's really difficult right now to be different because everybody's a DJ. Okay, so I try to separate myself with being a very good technical mixer. And I've literally had guys who go out and consider them a good DJ that will just stop in one night where I'm at, look what I do, and go, I really should take your classes. And I'm thinking, I like the way you DJ and you want to take my classes? What the heck? So I pride myself on that, but that is not the best thing, because not aside from other DJs, a lot of people don't care how well the DJ mixes. And I can honestly say a lot of people who stand in front of you don't care about the equipment you use. They don't care about your mixability. Are you playing their song?
Yeah.
And that's the time to kind of get your mind out of, at least in these scenes, and it can be from clubs to bars, because like I said, there's different, like you have a club. I always tell people you can tell a club, a bar, or a lounge by looking at the real estate. If you walk inside and most of the real estate is set to drinking, it's a bar. If most of the real estate is set to dancing, it's a club. If most of the real estate is couches sitting around, you're working at a lounge. And each one kind of has its own personality to what you mix. So when downloading the songs, and I think this is where it kind of gets separated, and something that I think that I try to do best is read the crowd, because when it comes to a hit song, I will download usually 3 versions of every song that I download almost. You have to get the radio edit that's plain and simple, nothing special. Clean, usually, because some places that I DJ now want the clean versions. Second one is some sort of re-drum or a remix from something like Club Killers or something that kind of gets a little bit of a club hit, a pump. And then the third one is like a high-energy house sort of remix. So you kind of have to read where you're at to create what kind of feel they want with the songs you do. So the preparation becomes in giving yourself options on versions of songs, knowing the songs. That's one of the things I teach in my class, is about knowing the song, knowing where the breakdowns are. So if it's a song and you want to do quick mixing means that I'm going to play the first verse, the chorus, the second verse, the chorus out, or chorus, verse out. So where you're doing a minute and a half of the song in and out, you need to know where the song to bring things in and out. So the prep becomes on the songs of knowing them, having different versions, reading the crowd for what they want to hear. So there's a lot of things like that come into that. And am I kind of answering that what you're looking
for?
No,
I think so. And you actually gave me a topic that I want to hit, because that's what I'm finding myself doing more as I'm doing. I'm doing more teen dances these days, which is ironic. I'm not that age anymore, but I find that those are the types of events I am doing more of, and I think this is a great that knowing the song is a great little point, and then all of us talk about this a little bit. Is how much of that do you pay attention to? Now, Dan, you coming from a teaching background, and being at the school and such, I find that I spend more time today going and listening to songs and researching lyrics and going to urban, going and checking the urban meaning of some of the words or the meanings of these songs, because it can bite you in the butt. And I don't think I really cared about that too terribly much. If there was an F-bomb in a song, 15 years ago, I was pretty much good,
I'm gonna say truffle butter and leave it at that. If you don't know what it is, you shouldn't be playing it.
Oh,
no.
yeah, I had a problem coming up, and 50... I saw that on there, and I had to look it up, and I got red faced just from that. So.
Oh, there's many things, and now people are going over to Google and are going to do that.
Google it later. Watch it later.
Oh, that's so.
Somebody asked on there about using different types of video tools and stuff like that, and somebody else about the DJ tools, about samples and stuff. Sometimes, depending on where you're at too, because those can be tools to be put in to help you mix between songs, transitions. But some places people get annoyed by scratching and stuff. So again, that all kind of comes in with that. So
yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. When we have questions like that, I'm trying to catch them, but every once in a while miss them as we're going through. So let's Dan. You mentioned, of course, that you do how much time do you spend listening to the music or researching it now that you're for your events, even in a wedding area?
Yeah, just driving to school. So during the school years, a lot of time where it's a little bit easier to do a lot of my music research. I have Sirius XM, I have the local stations, they're all preset. And in my half an hour drive there, half an hour drive back, I'm constantly just scanning for music and looking for. I like to listen to the talk every once in a while, but for the most part, because I like to use that time, appropriately, I'm looking for the songs and I'm trying to listen. And one of the advantages to that is by constantly scanning, I'm hearing, okay, this is getting played, seems like every time I turn it on, I'm hearing the same song.
Right.
Obviously it's popular, and so a lot of the listening aspect comes into that play. From there, I gauge I'll look at the charts, especially if I'm doing a school dance. That seems to be where I do more music research than anything else. But in the same respect, then I'm not practicing names. I'm not, meeting with the client 2 and 3 times. So there's kind of a trade-off. I'm listening to more of the music aspect. But I'll spend a lot of the time just kind of sitting there and dissect a song, and I'll look up lyrics.com to make sure that the unedited version that they're probably going to sing, even though I've got the clean one, isn't going to tick off some administration.
Oh, for sure.
I can be like, I played the clean one, and they're like, yeah, but that's not what we heard. And I'm like, yeah, because you heard every kid in the audience singing the version that they know. So I've had to really kind of put that look to it. But I think also the nice aspect to that is because I'm a teacher, I have that administrative kind of ear to, no, that's not school appropriate, because I know what, Johnny got in trouble for last week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think that definitely helps. I think when I was in that teaching realm, there's just some things you knew that we just weren't going to fly. And as I've gotten away from that, this may sound weird, I actually find myself being more conservative than I was when I was teaching. And that's kind of a weird thing. Ron, yourself, how much do you do much with kind of listening to the popular music that might be wedding appropriate and doing much of that?
I just my format is nothing but the 50s and 60s. That's all I do.
And you're going to the 60s, which would then be a little bit a
little bit racy. You have to watch it. Yeah. No, I seriously, I listen to, when I get my subscriptions, and I take a listen to what's on. I got to be honest, I have an extremely incredible an associate that is pretty much my DJ at a wedding. So I am the master of ceremonies and the director of the event, and she pretty much controls the music, but she does an incredible job of helping us stay current with the music. As I said, I listen to I'll listen to the subscriptions as they come in and see if there's anything there that I think there's going to be either something that will become a next big hit at a wedding, or something that I think is going to be extremely danceable, and then kind of take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a tough thing, and I find myself relying more on charts these days than I probably ever have in the past, and from a different variety of sources. I mean, if you're watching out there and you get the Disc Jockey News, you can see that we put a couple of different charts in there each month, and if you don't, go to the discjockeynews.com. You can either subscribe or you can at least look at the e-edition. You want to start on page 6 because that's really where the paper starts.
Thank you. And I think too, not just charts. One of the things I use to kind of gauge is I'll go to iTunes and see what's most downloaded. Kind of take a look at that. We don't get a whole lot of country requests in this area anymore, thank goodness. But so if I do come up with a couple that I know is going to want a lot of country, that's one of the resources I use. Is I'll go to iTunes to see what's the most downloaded country music at the time, and make sure that I have all of that. Plus, I'll compare it to what's on the charts, Billboard, and what's getting the most radio and club play on for country.
Yeah.
I found sometimes with the charts, it's you almost have to find something a little bit faster. A couple years ago when I was getting started and stuff like that, I could burn one CD a week of the stuff that I put together, and I could take it to the club or whatever I was playing, and that would be fine. And I find that, especially now, more music seems like it's coming out so fast, and I'm trying to keep up with it, that I almost feel like I have to find a different look than just the charts, say Billboard or even the ones in the Disc Jockey News. Nothing against what's in there, but especially if I'm doing a younger event, they're 3 weeks ahead of anything that's out there. It seems like.
For sure.
And so just always looking for that new avenue or that new aspect to it.
Secrets to that, and I'll be willing to share them if you'd like.
I was wondering if you might.
Yeah, he probably have.
They're my first go-to is Billboard's Hot 100, not Top 100, not singles, the Hot 100. You want to look at the green or red arrows to see which direction they're moving, because if you're at 200, 150, and it's an arrow that jumped a bunch, there's a chance you're going to start playing that on a regular basis soon. Second place is you find illegal places that get downloads and look at what their number one downloads are. Like one of the ones I look at is mp3skull.com, and they give you a list of top downloads. And those are the ones and I'm going to say this and feel free to laugh, that's how I found out about Gangnam Style before playing Gangnam Style, because it was so... their numbers on its download was so ridiculous that I'm like, this is going to be something I'm going to have to play soon.
Sure.
So the next thing after that is going to be tough is reality shows and commercials, because reality shows are going to have the hot song hitting. Commercials will run them too, because people want to make money off of them. And there's a lot of artists that make more money off of licensing their songs in commercials, in TV shows, than they do selling them flat out.
Mm-hmm.
So paying attention to stuff like that will also bring songs across your format that on the chart at number 50, but I'm hearing it constantly on this, this TV show, this commercial, this background, the Jimmy Fallon's band is playing it on the exit out. Then you go, might be something that you need to look at. So there are little things like that you kind of look at. Like I said, the Billboard Hot 200, look at the arrows and look where they're moving, because that'll indicate something that is coming up.
Another one I might add to that, and I've used this some, but it's kind of gets overwhelming when you look at too much. If you have any radio ties, is All Access. That's one that, kind of the same deal, maybe not quite as current, but if you're wanting to kind of get in where, okay, especially for the weddings, they're hearing this on the radio a lot, or they're going to be hearing this on the radio a lot, you can follow that same type of trend of how much something is jumping, what's the top spins for this week, and top increases and the things of that nature.
We've got a couple of actually interesting comments here. Mixmaster mentioned there's music. You can pick up some of the music ideas from Vines. If you're not familiar with Vine is a little 7-second video clip, and people will make Vines that are funny, weird, whatever, but they're these little 7-second, and there are times where they will use a little bit of a music bed, basically getting a 4 or 8 beats in there and just enough to tease you. And some of those Vines. Yeah.
Snapchat the same way.
Yeah. Except
if you get the right people, they will Snapchat lip sync their song.
Yeah.
You'll see it jump.
Precisely.
It's overwhelming. I'll tell anybody that has to deal. I know the wedding guys they don't have to stay as much up on the new stuff. But if you were in the scenes where you like the schools and different ones where you need it can become overwhelming. I don't care who you are, it can become overwhelming trying to keep up.
Oh, for sure. It is, and for those of us who do like Christian events off and on throughout the year, it really becomes overwhelming because these kids have heard songs at their public school dances, or they've heard it on the radio, or they heard it on the satellite or internet radio, whatever they're using, and then they come to our youth events, and now we have a whole different dynamic, and it's not as easy as it used to be. I think is probably the part I'm
Yeah, you're just getting old, John. Get over it.
Yeah.
Move on, man.
I mean, I keep wanting to play REO Speedwagon, but why do they not get into that?
Ariel, come on.
I had a guy ask for disco Saturday night, and I almost didn't have an answer for him.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. I tried to be as nice as I could, but I'm like, I'm
MJ, you're un-American. You got to have disco.
I have it. Trust me, I have songs back to, what's his name? King of the Delta Blues. I have it all in there. But at the place I was playing, it was stuff like Nicki Minaj and Lil Wayne and stuff like that, Jason Derulo and
no room
Meek
for
Mill. No Donna Summer. Not for those ones at once. One of the casinos here in the city I DJ at occasionally, and they strictly have a 70s and 80s format for their club inside the casino.
Yeah.
So there are nights so that I'm doing videos down there, and it is strictly straight up 70s and 80s stuff.
Got to come hang with you some night.
Yeah, those would be fun. I would enjoy those because I enjoy those nights, especially when someone else is doing them. Because when I do them, I'm playing basically my same favorite go-to 70s and 80s videos when I'm doing video shows. That's why it's really cool to watch someone else perform because you're getting a different flavor in what you're doing. But
I get the biggest laugh for looking at the videos since I'm doing videos for them that were out in the 80s and 70s. It's like, wow, I know that was really technical at one point.
and those of us who grew up in the 80s are like, wow, she was really pretty back then.
Go if you know the song Atomic Dog and you've never seen the video, go look up the video for Atomic Dog.
Great video. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. We've got about 9 minutes left before we kick off. We'll have to shut this down and head off to the actual full show here. Had a few things I wanted to talk about, but I think we're going to jump to our very last question. For the people who are out there, we've got some folks who are newer to the industry. We've got some people who've been around as long as we have. So we're covering all gamuts here. But if there were some things that for preparing for an event, a couple of tips you could give someone for preparing for an event. Now, and I don't care what event. So guys, pick an event and give them like 2 tips on things that they could do to help prepare to be more successful in that event. Okay. I'll start because I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with the teen dance thing. And my biggest thing is really getting back to what MJ was talking about, knowing the music. And with teen dances, I think that knowing where the verse and where the chorus and the verse and the bridge and all of those things are, because there's a lot of songs out there that I can play this much of it at an event, and it's great. And then I get into the next part of the song where she's all of a sudden, or he's one talking about they're hooking up in a hotel room, and there's things. So first off, I would really spend the time to know the music that's hitting high in the charts that you're going to be asked to play, because my high school dances, I'm playing 20 seconds of a song, I'm playing 30 seconds of a song, I'm playing first verse, chorus, second verse, I'm out, or I'm playing first verse, chorus, and I'm out. That kind of a thing's happening to my music and such an awful lot. Second thing is for preparing for an event is making sure that on my cell phone that I have all of the important phone numbers for any event. And that's something that I didn't used to do, and I want to make sure that I have it because there have been times where I've lost some of my documentation, so I had to go to my online event planner, and if I didn't have the phone numbers there and if it wasn't on my cell phone, I was kind of hosed. So those are my 2 thoughts. Let's start with Ron. We're going to go right to left. Ron, what are a couple of tips? What type of event and some tips?
Well. First off, I got to say you're really cute when you try to skirt your way around the subject of sex. That just cracks me up watching you. So, anyhow, my big two tips. Um, for me, it's about relationships. I think that um, I the most successful events for me are done because of the relationships I have with my clients. So I spend a great deal of time developing that relationship and making it one that is one of trust and respect. It's a two-way street, not just for me, but of them. And as I said earlier, I kind of go after a niche market of people that are really focused on wanting things that are extremely detailed. So, in conjunction with the relationship, I would say that if you want to have a successful event, make sure that it is as detailed as you can possibly make it going in without it being overly structured. And I'm talking primarily about weddings, because I think weddings and maybe bar and bat mitzvahs are the two events that require the most detail as far as a timeline and structure and those sort of things. A little bit different, I believe, from my limited days of doing middle schools and high schools, to have that kind of structure. So those would be my two primary suggestions: relationships and detail, eye to detail.
MJ, what do you got?
Press play.
That was going to be my third.
Was that
In first.
or is that before or after you hit the sync button? I'm not sure.
All right. I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible because I go into a lot of detail. I know a lot when I talk. When I tell people practice, don't be afraid to take time practicing. And I'm not saying that you have to become a great mixer. The more comfortable you get switching songs will make it simple when you have a tense moment. Someone's talking in your ear, a bride needs something, and you need to switch a song properly. Practicing will make that smoother. You'll become comfortable with that, okay? Second thing, become comfortable talking with, whether it's over a mic or to a person. Your personality is, I think, as things get more technical, because they talk about recently that Spotify has the ability, they say, with their algorithms to pick the next hit songs. So we have programs that will mix the songs. Now we're having programs that can pick the songs. So there isn't much left for the DJ than to be a personality.
Yeah.
So don't learn to talk to people. Even if it's off the mic, you can impress someone by going, this guy is polite, he speaks proper English, he's intelligent, he seems approachable. That's a big deal. So practicing speaking, practicing mixing, even if it's little things, like I said, even if it's a stop and start, know your equipment, take the time ahead of time for those little things. And when you're there, two things when you're there. So there's two things prior to it, two things when you're there. One, look around. Look around at people's feet. Look around at their shoulders, their eyes. Are they bobbing their head? Are they tapping their feet? Read the crowd by what they're doing. Even if it's not time for them to dance yet. If it's an older song and people are really jamming, then you know, hey, they might like older stuff as opposed to new. Read the crowd. And number two, and the last one, have fun. Because if you're not having fun, I promise you, you suck as a DJ. And I mean that because if you're up there and you're not having fun, I guarantee if you're trying to mix, your mixes won't be good. If you're talking to the audience, your talking won't be good. Yeah. Your presentation won't be good. If you're not having fun, there's a very, very big chance your audience isn't going to have fun.
Yeah,
so,
that's for sure.
There you go.
Good points. Dan, wrap us up here. What do you got?
My two big ones, first off, would be find a mentor. Find somebody or just randomly pick somebody and follow them to an event. I started doing this 2 years ago, I think it was now, and I even talked about it in one of my articles where I take a Saturday and I'll go out and I'm say, I'm free labor for you. I'll be your assistant, whatever you want. And it just gives me a chance to see somebody else perform. I mean, sometimes we get so stuck in seeing ourselves because we're the one doing the event that we don't have somebody to learn from. So my big one, first off, is find a mentor, go to their event with them, obviously with their permission, and just enjoy the wedding, but also, enjoy helping them and learning from them. And then the second thing, hide a video camera and watch yourself. After the event, after you're done with that high of the event, after you're past, oh, this is the best wedding I've ever done. Watch yourself. Watch yourself. I just did this this past weekend. I was trying something new. Decided I had a little GoPro Hero that I borrowed from somebody. Recorded it, and when I was on the mic, things were fine. When I wasn't, I realized, that you talked about the having fun. I was having fun, but my face didn't show it as much as I thought it showed it.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely that self-reflection will help the prep for the next event.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm big on recording sets and going back and looking, because you may think in the moment, you may not, but you also may be doing great, and that'll give you the chance to have a little more confidence if you are doing good. So absolutely.
And I would say that if I were asked to repeat and try again with my answers, I would actually these guys. I agree with everything these guys said. I mean, any one of us, I think, could easily have said what the other one said. I think it's absolutely the truth, except for the whole thing about the song and and they do and that.
John, we love you.
Are you saying something?
No, I was just no.
Do you know how red I get playing Baby Got Back yet today?
When he starts on that, all in my mind, I only think I hear is the R. Kelly song where he goes, "We got room keys."
Well, guys, it is 9:00. We need to wrap it up. Thank you very much for out there watching us on the YouTube page. Now you got to go back to DJN Virtual Expo, because that's where the show is going to be going on. Gosh, we've had like 50 some people here throughout the evening.
Wow.
There's some questions and such. We're going to try to get those. I know there's one on some ELS speakers from American Audio. If you're still watching, we're actually getting some of those into the office next week to do some testing on it, and I'm going to have some more videos on that because they looked cool when we saw them at NAMM. So otherwise, guys, MJ, Ron, thank you very much for being on tonight.
Thank you.
But it's time, ladies and gentlemen,
Pleasure.
to go. DJNVirtualExpo.com. Go there and do a hard refresh if you need to, and it should bring up tonight's performance seminars. How'd it go, guys? Are we good?
You said hard.
Yeah.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. Catch the seminars, and we'll be back tomorrow night with our second 8 o'clock Central to 9 o'clock live chat. Good night.